You are listening to Scribble Talk, a podcast for bid and proposal professionals. My name is Baskar Sundaram, and with my co-host,
Ashley Case,
we will be sitting down with our industry veterans to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn how to make an impact in the industry.
Today's guest is Nic Adams. Nic is an industry veteran with more than 30 years of IT and bid and proposal experience, having recently worked for Teradata as lead for EMEA proposal management and RFX process, and previously leading their UK and Ireland opportunity management function. Before Teradata, Nic also worked at Liberata, Atos/Siemens IT Solutions, Dell, HP, and Fujitsu. Nic is currently Strategic Projects Director for APMP UK. An active member of APMP since 2004, Nic has served on the UK Chapter Board of Directors since 2007. Nic has held the offices of CFO, COO, CEO, and immediate past CEO. Nic was also 2017 and 2018 UK Conference Director. At an international level, Nic has served as APMP International Chair, past chair, and was also the first ever treasurer for the association. Nic is APMP Practitioner certified and has a business management degree from the University of South Africa. Nic has a history of personal involvement in nonprofit organizations and has been elected to numerous board positions within AFSM International, Rotary, Lions International, and various educational institutions. Welcome, Nic, to Scribble Talk. Great to have you with us.
Great. Thank you very much, Ashley and Baskar. Look forward to chatting.
Yes, we're so excited to have you. We're going to start in the beginning. We're curious kind of where you were born, where you grew up, and where you went to school.
Great. So I'm quite an interesting one. I was born in Johannesburg, South Africa in 1957, so I'm quite an oldie. The interesting side is that I lived half my life in South Africa and half my life in the UK, in England. And before I, in fact, was 1 year old, my family moved to the UK, where we remained till I was 9 years old. So I started schooling in the UK in those early formative years, and then finished off schooling in South Africa. So that was quite an interesting change and quite exciting actually back then, because of course it was the days of ships as opposed to planes. So we had a lovely week cruise on the South Marine Union Castle liner, which for a 9-year-old was fantastic. So education-wise, I finished my high school in South Africa. When we were back out there, we were living in a city called Germiston, which is adjacent to Johannesburg. And I finished my matriculated, which is an A-level equivalent university entrance certificate in Johannesburg. And I wasn't quite clear what I wanted to do when I left school, but so I had a little bit of a break and dabbled, and then I went and studied electrical engineering at the Witwatersrand College and embarked on a career in electronics. I think you must note that in those early days where we were going back then, of course, is there weren't PCs available, and there was no internet, there was no email, and there were very few courses tailored available for information technology as such. So electronics or electrical engineering was probably the closest you could get. Subsequent to that, I've completed a number of courses: financial management accounting with Damelin College, digital communications, again with Damelin College, and as you mentioned earlier, I did an MDP, which is a mini MBA type at the University of South Africa. Also, probably relevant to my career in the sales perspective, is I've completed courses in project management, the spin selling model, Miller-Heiman, and target account selling, and of course, my APMP Practitioner certification.
Wow. So it sounds like you entered the career force maybe in the electronics field. What was your first job?
Well, prior to, I mentioned that break, so just interesting, I spent a couple of years in the restauranting and retail sector, which although I enjoyed elements of it, I absolutely hated the hours and vowed I'd never get back into it unless I owned the business, which has never happened. But following studying on the engineering side, and the first large company I was with was International Computers Limited, which was the largest British computer company. And that then became Fujitsu and is more commonly known in many cases as Fujitsu Services today, which is a global IT company. I joined them and was supporting their R&D department, and then evolved into senior repair engineer, where I was repairing mid-range computer systems, but this was at a component level. So this wasn't what you get nowadays, someone fiddling around. This is where you have data scopes, oscilloscopes, and you are going right down to the boards, repairing those. I evolved through that, actually, and set up, I had a quick break. I was with DEC, Digital Equipment Corp. I did a contract role for 6-8 months in the UK, and then went back to ICL in South Africa. And when I got back, I was asked to set up a computer environmental services unit. This was the advent, that was in 1989, 1990. This was the advent of Unix mid-range systems. Prior to that, all you had was big mainframes and dumb terminals everywhere. And suddenly lots of mid-range organizations, and in fact your big organizations, were installing these mid-range systems. And the problem is they had all these terminals connected to them, and there were major earthing problems in many locations. You had people putting the server under the desk and in the broom cupboard and things like that, and wondering why it failed when there was no ventilation. So I had a crew of people. I had 20 specialists. We would go out, we would do assessments, consulting, and I was working very much in a technical sales side. I moved from that as the industry evolved. I moved from that into technical services marketing, which was extremely interesting, and that was developing new service products, which would include the go-to-market strategy and all your technical and sales areas enablement. So in essence, you could put a folder on the table to one of your salespeople, and they had a product that they could go out and sell. From there, I went into Services Bid Support Manager, and this was supporting the South African region. And a lot of my time there was developing cost models for services, negotiating business SLAs with our key customers in the region, as well as working on both ICT and outsourcing bids. I evolved from that and was tasked to set up and run a bid and proposal management center for sub-Saharan Africa. And that involved, from scratch, is identifying, recruiting the people, pulling together a process, looking at best practice where possible, and looking at what tools and technology and how it would integrate into the business. So that's very much, you could say, my first thrust or first few years that sort of brought me up to virtually being in the bid world. I think it might be interesting to note that, my first customer proposal was when I was in that technical sales for computer environmental services, and that was through necessity. But I really had no idea about any disciplines on proposal management at that stage. In essence, I was a glorified engineer come salesperson. But when setting up the bid center for sub-Saharan Africa, the Bid and Proposal Management Center, that's when I had to do quite a bit of research and reach out globally to find out as much as I could about the process. And just very interestingly, at that point in time, there were no, APMP, I'm not sure, was formed yet, and there was no well-documented methodology on the whole process. But a lot of what I discovered in those days, I'm happy to say, which have been around for many years, are integrated in the body of knowledge of APMP today.
Oh, wow. What an interesting journey into the bids and proposals field. It sounds like you had a ton of sales experience and then kind of fell into the proposal side of it. Do you have a most memorable proposal or capture effort beyond that first one?
Well, the one, as with life, you get the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so I'll only talk about a good one, which was a very large UK government tender, and that was close to $1 billion. But why that is memorable to me, because it was a very competitive and long pursuit. I worked on that, leading as the bid manager, bid director for 2.5 years on the pursuit. And the team, it was a large team, over 100 odd people worked on the deal at different times, at key stages, probably averaging around about 40 at any one time. It was enormous submission. I had 2 bid managers supporting me, 2 proposal managers and 3 writers, as well as some document managers, and had to set up a PMO as well as we neared the final stages, and build that so that it could be involved into a delivery PMO once we won. So I remember that as purely, it was almost as if you were working for a different company at that point in time, when you get your head down and you just go into these large type government bids.
Yeah, absolutely. Those big ones stick with us, don't they?
Yeah, indeed.
So Nic, can you tell us 3 things that not many people would know about you?
Well, one, I think, is my mother was a music, speech and drama teacher. Myself and my brothers from an early age were subjected, I use the word subjected, to involvement in amateur dramatics, music, singing in choirs, and going and performing in Eisteddfods and competitions. Many certificates I won in my earlier years. And that probably evolved into another point, which is, as I got older, I learned the piano, and I even taught the piano and singing for a couple of years part-time. And as a teenager, then obviously you got stuck with the music of the day and played in bands. And in fact, probably from age 14 till in my 50s, over 25 years as a keyboard player in various different bands and such.
Oh, wow.
So that was quite a lot. Another thing as well is I was very involved in service clubs in my younger years. So I was a member of Leo's, which is a part of Lions International, specifically for younger people. The age group there in South Africa was 18 to 28, and the objective being to gain leadership skills through delivery of projects to the community. And in that organisation, I was elected club president, district president, and multiple district chair for Southern Africa. I also had a few years with Rotary International, and served on the club's board. And as you mentioned earlier, I was a club treasurer, in fact, with the Association of Service Managers International. So those are a few things which you can see from that I certainly have been involved in associations, quite a large part, and not-for-profits, quite a large part of my life.
Yeah, very impressive, Nic. That's great.
Nic, are you close to piano, Nic? Do you want to play a song?
The piano is probably it's in my study, and it's 6-8 feet away, but I must be honest, I'm not going to reach over to it at this point in time, Baskar.
Nic, that's impressive. I've known you for so many years. I didn't even know. Next time you need to sing and dance for me, Nic. Right, Nic. So you've been a member from APMP from 2004, Nic, is that right?
I think it was 2004, thereabouts. And in fact, I was contracting with Hewlett-Packard then, and in the UK, the founding meeting of the UK chapter was actually based where I was based, which was an old Deck Park site. And that was founded in that actual building. And there were a number of the members in the bid centre. There were APMP members, and they got me along, and I was a bit worried because I'd already had close to 10 years in the industry, and I thought, oh, this sounds, it might be too junior for myself. But after attending an event and chatting and meeting to people, I soon determined that the value of APMP and moved forward from that.
Wow, this was in 2004. And from then on, Nic, you're here with us for like 16 years now. So from the time you saw Nic, how many members were there, Nic, roughly? Or was there any members? Or?
Oh, gosh. What, internationally or UK?
Both, 2004-ish, roughly.
Oh, dear. Well, in the UK, there were probably only in the region of 380 to 400 members.
Wow,
or thereabouts. That was increasing slowly. And it sat round about that 500 mark, a bit below and under for a number of years after that. Internationally, well, the UK chapter now has more members in the one chapter than we had internationally at that point in time. So we've really grown as an association quite significantly.
Yes, Nic, I mean, like all the great work done by you and a few others. Nic, the UK chapter board, Nic, you have been part of the UK chapter board from 2007, is it, Nic, roughly?
That is correct. Yeah, I'm sad to say that's the case. As much as I do have try to extract myself at various times. But yes, so I was got involved on the board and joined as the finance director for the UK chapter and served there for many years. I was CEO for 2 terms. That was in 2011, 2012. Conference director for 2017, 2018, and symposium director for 2017. I'm happy to say that during my term as chair, we got the Chapter of the Year award both years running. I got the Chapter Chair of the Year award for 2012, as well as a number of other international awards that we got. I think my big contribution I look at is turning around the governance from a board perspective at the chapter, to putting good fiscal policy in, and also running the first strategy planning workshop, long range planning workshop. We rebranded, and from the time we rebranded and we refocused and moved forward, our membership just started soaring. As you know, as we're probably I'm not sure, but we're approaching possibly 2,500 members in the UK chapter currently.
The roles, Nic, CFO, COO, and CEO, can you distill, Nic, what exactly they do?
Okay, so we've actually changed the terminology. So in the UK, those were the terminologies that used to be. So I mean, we now call what used to be the chapter CEO is now a chapter chair. And as you know, as internationally, we have the international chair, which used to be CEO. So in fact, when I was international chair equivalent, I was the last person to have the title CEO. And we made the decision to change from that year onwards. The reason for changing is very simple, is that the terminology, you get different terminology used across the globe. In the US, North Americas, the use of presidents, senior vice presidents is common. That's not common in Europe to use that terminology or many other parts of the globe. So you'd find that we were used to, CEO implies to me someone who is very operational, chief executive officer, and they're actually running the operation of the organization, whereas chair is probably more apt, certainly at an international level, as your chairman of the board of directors. So at a chapter level, we've done the same, although CEO could still be valid, because the basic difference between a director at APMP International level is that your focus there is on strategy and direction for the association, The delivery of day-to-day stuff is done through our staff, where at a chapter level, you are the staff. So you have to be both have a strategic cap on as well as be operational in making things happen at a chapter level. So the chapter chair is the chairman of the board for that chapter. The designated, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I can, but I won't. But the COO is invariably the vice chair. So we used to use the term COO, but it's really your vice chair who would be elected to take on after the chair, and then you become past chair. So it's vice chair, chair, past chair. And your other members of the board could be a CFO, is really just a treasurer or finance director or such. And your other portfolios will be relevant to the size of your chapter and such. In the UK, it's being a large chapter, there are quite a number of different portfolios that are there. You obviously have to have projects, you need a conference director, you need to have your finance director, we have a professional development director, you have a communications or public relations director, and all these people have tangible roles and groups of people who support them below.
Taking a voluntary position is one, Nic, but then running an event for like 2,000 people is a massive beast in altogether, Nic. And you have been a conference director 2017, 2018, also ran symposium. Like, how was it, Nic, being a voluntary association? You know, we need to launch an event like a big event management company at the same time with what we have got with limited funding, with limited resources, Nic. How do you?
Yes, so it becomes more challenging when you become a large chapter because the UK, it wouldn't, I think, be feasible in many countries, but the UK, of course, is quite a high density population. And you'll find that even within the chapter in the London and southeast of the country, accounts for probably 65% or more of the membership. So you will find that bid and proposal management professionals will be in areas where companies have their regional or head offices, because that's where the salespeople are and where they're generating and driving the pursuits from those hubs. So they tend to be more congregated around your business areas, hence why the NCA chapter and the UK chapter are the two largest and have been for many years globally. But it's a different business model. So when you're looking at a very large chapter such as the UK, there's very little in common with a chapter who has maybe 60 or 80 members. Operationally, you can't do it your own. So we use service providers for delivery of various services. And engage organizations. We don't have permanent staff at all, but it takes a heck of a lot of commitment and time from you as the individual from a UK perspective. Certainly, I can assure you that, and specifically if you're the chair, such, you have that year as chair is very demanding on you.
Nic, I mean, from then on, Nic, you also took up a wider role with the international board, Nic. How was that experience, and was there any interesting contributions there as well?
Well, that was very, I really enjoyed that. It was very good. We had a few years in the earlier years where the chapters outside of the US were very much, you felt a barrier. We weren't one association as such. So involvement in international direction, I think, was key in bridging all of us across the big pond. All with current views, all with current approaches, and all professionals in the industry. So I was elected as a board member to International and was the first association treasurer, as mentioned. And there I created a structure for board reporting and transparency. Very much is our focus as when you're on the association side of it, is at giving value back to your members. And you have to be focused on, if it's not any project or program you're going to do, if it isn't good use of funds, if it's not going to add value to the members, and if you can't sustain it going forward, you have to question why doing it. As you know, I was the international CEO, the chair in 2016. During my term and serving on the board as well, both as chair before and past chair, I facilitated 2 of the 3-year long-range planning strategy workshops, was able to support the association that way. And as you're probably aware, as in 2019, last year, I was awarded the APMP Fellows Award for my contribution to the profession and industry. So, yeah, very interesting journey, and certainly was glad to have been able to have served the association.
Now, from your experience, Nic, why do you think people need to be involved on a chapter, Nic?
Why?
Uh-huh.
Well, you don't have to be, but I think it's like anything. Is we all whinge about our politicians, but there are not many of us who actually say, "Well, I'm going to get involved in campaigning for the person or stand up myself for something." So it's like anything in life. Is if you're passionate and you want to move things forward, and I mean, our big thrust has been for the whole association is to see bid proposal and capture management as a profession. There's still things we can do in that, but prior or previously is often it was the backroom people. They were just, support people in the back end. We've made tremendous strides as an association in our growth and through our certification in getting industry to see APMP as being leaders in this field and being go-to advisors. To support that journey, you need people who are passionate about the profession and developing it. So if someone's passionate and they're prepared to spend the time, then they should actually reach out to their chapter and they should ask to participate on the board. Yeah, I think that's probably it. It's not everyone's cup of tea, I might add, but, as long as the motives are sound and the folk have the time and deliver, then, that's great.
No, I think we've kind of drilled Nic pretty hard already, and it might be time to lighten things up with our surprise rapid fire questions round.
Okay.
All right, Nic. So what would the world be like if it was filled with male and female copies of you?
Oh, wow. It would probably, the future of mankind might end because we might not get on with each other. Let's put it that way.
If you were transported 400 years into the past with no clothes or anything else, how would you prove to them that you were from the future?
Okay, that's very interesting. It would be very tricky. You could only prove it probably through your understanding of sciences and technology. The challenge 400 years ago is you'd probably be seen as some form of witch or wizard and could be burnt at the stake as a result of being a blasphemous suggestions behaviour. But again, 400 years ago, they'd be a bit concerned if you were there naked,
Yeah.
Or not.
Lots of challenges there. So if you were held at gunpoint and told that if you didn't impress them with your dance moves or you would be killed, what dance moves would you bust out?
I'm not a dancer. My wife will attest to that. She's had many a sore foot or toes. I'm not a dancer. And, of course, my challenge there is, as I mentioned, I played in bands for some 25-odd years. And when you're playing in a band, you're not dancing. So, I would probably just shake. There would be no move. It would be horrendous. Get close to them and then maybe do the kick dance,
Sounds great. So how do you feel about putting pineapple on pizza?
For a, how can I say it, a Hawaiian pizza, if it's got ham and pineapple, great. I quite like it.
Oh, very
My
nice.
wife doesn't. So she will always order a Hawaiian, no pineapple. But I quite like pineapple, as long as it's fresh pineapple.
So you're a house divided on the Hawaiian pizza then.
Absolutely.
What do you cook better than anyone else?
Many things. Well, cooking is one of my passions, actually. So I do 95% of the cooking at home. So, I mean, you'll have everything I do. I enjoy pies. I did a chicken leek and prosecco pie. I enjoy baking various bits and pieces. It's time related, but fortunately I've been a virtual employee for a number of years, so I don't have the long commute home and can often get on with dinner earlier than normal. So I cook all sorts of things. I do a lovely my crepe Suzettes are great, my chateaubriand. Steaks, barbecuing is a favorite. Having lived in South Africa, of course, is any opportunity to get the barbecue out. And, the Weber is my favorite still, the kettle barbecue. I do all sorts of things. I think last night was breaded chicken, pan fried with butter and lemon. And night before I did some Atlantic cod. Yes, I made a lasagna just in the last week as well. Meatballs homemade as well with pasta. So you name it, and I'll tell you if I've made it. The only thing is Sue, my wife, is not she doesn't like hot things. So curries and Mexican stuff, I'm afraid, is pretty banned from the house because as much as I enjoy it, it's takeaways. Yes, it's good for me, but I rely on takeaways or eating out for my chili kick.
It sounds delicious, and it sounds like you guys eat very well at your household. So Nic, what is the most courageous thing that you've ever done?
Courageous things I've done is when I was in the earlier part, when I was in the service club thing, we spent a lot of time helping children in orphanages in the townships in South Africa. We used to go to another orphanage, and as a band we used to play there to entertain them. My brother and I ran a youth group at the church as well for kids who had nothing to do on a Friday night every week, actually a Thursday night it was. So I've done a lot of things on that nature, given up my time to collect food and such and build parcels for those who couldn't have it. We used to have another project where we would provide soup in the winter months to all the homeless centres and such, where we'd buy bulk powdered type soup, which was nutritionally strong, and provide them with the soup, and they had bread and they could at least have meals. So those are the sort of things. I spent a lot of time doing that. I'm quite open to helping those who are in need.
Yeah, it's amazing, very honorable. So if you could eat only 3 foods for the rest of your life, what would they be?
Oh, 3 foods. It will probably be beef. Or if you say meat as a food, then obviously I've got the whole lot. But I love beef, lamb. I love all red meat, but I do like white meat. And it would be potatoes are my probably favourite veg. Beef, potatoes, and vegetable-wise, I like my greens. So, good broccoli or peas, probably peas because they're more versatile, or beans or such. Yeah.
Sounds like, standard Sunday dinner at my house growing up.
Yeah, that was it. Myself was always a Sunday roast every Sunday. So,
Okay, last one. If you could pick a new first name, what would it be?
It would probably be much. That's an interesting one. I would probably keep it in the. I'm not too sure. I've always said to people is you can call me what you like as long as it's not derogatory. And my brothers and I, we were all really named after. So I'm Nicholas, and my eldest brother was Christopher, and it was Michael and Nicholas. So we're all saints in that sense, not in real life at all. But on that basis is, I would be happy with any one of those names. I think as long as it's a name that can be respected. Possibly it might be nice. I think people who have names that can't be abbreviated are sometimes quite good. Nicholas is always Nick, Michael is always Mike, Chris is always Chris. So you do get some names that can't be abbreviated, and I think that could be useful because people tend to remember them more, I think.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think it would be tough to choose a new name myself.
Yeah, I mean, my second name is Frederick, and I don't like that because, of course, then you're Freddy, aren't you?
Yes.
You always, from the movies, you always have bad, Freddy is never a good guy,
Good point.
Nick, thank you, Nick. And you were so lucky, Nick. I think the questions we picked up were on your favorite topic, which was food. So you kind of escaped there. But Nick, I think looking back, Nick, I mean, you made it sound very, very simple, Nick. I mean, if you look back, who are the people, Nick, who has helped you become the person who you are today? And what do you think is the top thing that you thank them for?
So the main people, and probably the greatest influence I've had through my life has really been from family, from my parents, my mother particularly, my brothers, and my wife. And that was always is what we need the confidence to move forward. So even though as a child I may have hated being put on stage all the time, it gave you the confidence to do that and believe in yourself, which is probably the most important thing. So I don't really have any key influences outside, should I say, of my parents, brothers, and my wife. They've been the ones who've driven me moving forward. And when I've aspired for something, it's normally been a passion to move forward in that direction.
Makes sense, Nick. I think you can say that you are motivated by somebody who you have no relationship with, but 100% I agree with you. I think motivation mostly comes within the family and friends whom you know. That's brilliant. So, what is the best piece of advice, Nick, that you have received, and from who?
Okay, so there's been a few things, but probably the enduring piece of advice is to always to listen carefully and to always think before speaking, and to take a holistic view of the situation. So listening is an art, and why I say it's an art, it's not only listening to the words, but most of us listen and just nod our heads, but don't actually absorb what the person's saying. I think the art is saying, well, why are they saying that? And what does it really mean in the context of where we are? And this is very important, and certainly in the industry we're in, as when you're with customers, is you can pick up a lot of messages knowing the background and the situation, because what one would say in one situation will have a completely different meaning to saying the exact same thing in a different situation. So taking the holistic view and listening very carefully to me is very important. And another piece of advice I always got was to remember, not forget the basics. We get stuck up in processes. A phrase that was always said to me was, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And that, of course, is from the hunter's perspective, is when you've made the kill, there's more than one way to not, of course, it's not very eco-friendly now to talk of hunting lions and things, but absolutely, when you're looking at processes and things like that, it's important to remember the basics, what the objective are and what the goal is, and not get hung up on the process. There's more than one way to do things, as long as it's a way that's best for that team or situation.
Well said, Nic. That's very true. Nic, I think you have been I have always seen you happy, Nic. And that's something that I always love you. What made you laugh or smile recently, Nic?
I think it's usually it's a very difficult one, Baskar, because I laugh and smile all the time. So I think it's I get pleasure out of seeing people and they reach the same conclusion as yourselves at times.
So Nic, we're down to our final 3 questions. So looking back on your career, we can see just from this short conversation that you have experienced and achieved so much. But what's one thing that you wish that you had known when you began your career?
I think I would have liked to have known that there was such a profession as bid and proposal management. Also, when I grew up, sales was a dirty word. When your friends and colleagues were going into sales and such, it was, oh, no, we're not going there. Maybe it was because I was more practical and engineering related. But I think, and I've run some training modules for graduates in my last company, a couple of years running. And they have always enjoyed the understanding of the whole sales process and opportunity life cycle from A to Z, because many people, they get all these big slots, but they don't know how it actually, in a few sentences, hangs together. And this is what business is all about. Okay. And where you move from A to B to C. You also see an appreciation, a lot of people in the proposal area who absolutely do not like or don't identify with people in the sales area, and vice versa, the salespeople don't identify to the back end. So I think if people were trained more and get a full view of this is the business cycle, and like a table is you have one leg missing and it's wobbly, everyone's got to be there in their place, I think that would have been great. And certainly helped me in developing my career, should we say, more swiftly rather than just evolving into it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think through APMP efforts and things like that, we're getting closer to that sort of rigor earlier on in processes for especially, those of my generation and starting out our careers. So great efforts to you and everyone else who's kind of led that way. So again, you've achieved so much. What do you think are the secrets behind getting to where you've gotten to in your life and career?
Well, I think some comes through characteristics in that I always speak straight. I'm honest. Honesty, integrity, and saying what you believe is very important, but knowing when to say it as well and who to say it to. Understanding the basics is key. Objectivity is important, And I always have the questions, the who, how, where, which, when, what, and why you have to ask in any scenario. And if you ask those questions, invariably you will be able to get a full view. So I think I wouldn't say I've had an easy journey. There's some people who are certainly not one to curry up to the boss, and get seek favor openly. In fact, I quite dislike that. But so it's always been hard earned, should I say? Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. You pointed out some very good advice for those of us in the world, the who, what, when, where, why, asking those questions, always important. All right, Nic, so last one. What's one thing that you're looking forward to in the future?
Okay, so I'm at the tail end of my career. At the top of the point, I've just completed 6.5 years with a global corporation, and what I'm quite keen to do now is get back into the consulting side, which I spent a number of years doing, and exploring those areas. What's not entirely clear, and really to continue in the capture bid and proposal profession, is great. I spent a lot of time over the past few years working with business development managers, helping them with targeting new accounts and building strategies, contact plans, a lot of capture work, and mentoring where possible. And I really enjoy that. But consulting is great because you're going in and you can view things freshly and you can pull on all your knowledge, resources, and something that works is always a good, when you've achieved something and it works, I think that's the greatest reward of all. We obviously now, with the coronavirus situation, we still need to assess, and this we'll only know probably in the next 6-8 weeks, get an indication as to how that's going to affect our industry and the market. Certainly a number of organizations will put procurements on hold. They will want to wait to see what the impact is on their business. And I think that could have a knock-on impact. So it may, in fact, as well change some of the way the industry moves forward. But let's hope optimistically that it's good for all of us.
Yes, at this point, that's all we can do, right? Is hope and watch and take every day at a time.
Yes, Nic. Nic, is there any part of your life or career, Nic, that we didn't touch, APMP or anything, part of this conversation that you would like to share?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just trying to think. I think we've been quite all round. We've gone through cooking, we've gone through music, we've gone through association stuff, we've moved through, if I was naked 400 years ago, But I mean, these what I should have said then, of course, is I wouldn't have any time because everyone would want a part of me when they saw me naked. But in any case, unfortunately, that would have been a bit nepotistic, shall we say.
Exactly. No, that's brilliant closing. So thank you so much, Nic. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a privilege, Nic, to have you with us at Scribble Talk. Wish you all the good health, happiness, and everything. Please continue to inspire bid and proposal community and everybody around you, Nic. Stay happy, stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, Nic. Thank you.
Thank you, Baskar, and thank you for the opportunity to share my experiences and life.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit batchyscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays
Baskar Sundaram,
signing off.